Montana Governor Greg Gianforte is promising to defend his state against threats to what he calls security, privacy, and way of life. His target, TikTok. Montana just became the first state in the country to ban the China-based social media app within its borders. But it's up to TikTok, or its owners anyway, to remove itself from Montana, or face $10,000 a day fines if it operates within the state. The same fine applies to mobile stores that make it available. TikTok has already been banned on all federal devices in the U.S. and in government-issued technology in a number of other states. But this is the first time a ban has affected what everyday Americans can watch on and post on their own phones. And it's set to go into effect in January, but it's already facing a flood of backlash, including from the ACLU, which accused the governor of trampling on free speech and indicated court challenges are on the way. To discuss, I'm joined by Bruce Schneier, a fellow at Harvard's Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society and a lecturer in public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School, and Dan Lyons, a professor and the associate dean of academic affairs at Boston College Law School. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Well, Bruce, I'll start with you. We keep hearing about these threats. We see what the federal government has done. How legitimate are the threats and concerns about having TikTok on our phones?
You know, it's a really hard question to answer because, of course, TikTok is spying on all of us, just like every other internet platform, Facebook, Google, Amazon, everybody else. So, yes, these programs are collecting a lot of information about our likes and dislikes. You know, you never lied to your search engine. So these are real concerns, but they're concerns with the surveillance business model of the internet in general, and not necessarily with TikTok in particular.
Yeah, so does it mean that it's all that different from all of the other user agreements that we're constantly signing without ever really looking at and examining?
It's no different. The only difference is TikTok is a Chinese company. Now, all of these companies respond to court orders from countries all over the world, but TikTok being a Chinese company, the risk as perceived is that somehow the government is going to use this in some massive surveillance operation. And that is worse than the US using Facebook data similarly.
Well, Dan, let me bring you in here in the legal ramifications of this. I guess the fundamental question is it legal for the governor of Montana to, well, we won't question whether he can sign the bill or not, but whether they can remove this from users' phones within Montana borders?
Yeah, I think we're pretty quickly going to see a First Amendment challenge to the ban, and I think the big concern is how broad the ban operates, right? So generally is what we would consider a content-neutral restriction on speech, right? A time, place, or manner restriction on user speech. And so in order to be upheld, the Montana court would have to show that it's serving an important governmental interest and that it's not infringing significantly more speech than necessary to achieve that interest. So, and I think the latter part is where the Montana bill is going to run into some trouble, because even assuming these concerns about, preventing intelligence from going to the Chinese government are legitimate concerns, a flat ban on the app completely it infringes far more speech than necessary to accomplish that goal. It's not just getting at potentially sensitive information, it's getting at sea shanties and jokes and dance videos, none of which have any intelligence value whatsoever.
Do we even make it to the January deadline where Montana will enact this, or will court challenges rise up, and will there be some sort of solution before then?
Well, I expect the case to be filed shortly if it hasn't been filed already, but whether we get to January before then depends on sort of how the court handles the case compared to other issues on its docket.
Bruce, how does this work practically? I'm going to Montana this summer. In full honesty, I don't have TikTok on my phone anyway, but if I did, would I be obligated to hide it or remove it from my phone? And what if I did use it on my phone within the Montana borders?
Yeah, I don't know. And unfortunately, this is really a problem. The phone is not going to know where you are necessarily. The phone will, the cell network, but TikTok is not going to know where you are. And enforcement is really where this fails. We can ban it from the app stores. I mean, that's doable. You can imagine Apple being forced not to let anyone download TikTok if they have a credit card from a Montana address, but that doesn't address people who have it already. It's not going to automatically turn off when you cross the border. We can't do that. And even if we could, there are lots of ways around that kind of censorship. You can have TikTok on your computer, on the website, which is even harder. this is really hard to enforce. They're putting the onus on ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, to enforce it, but there's no real way for them to enforce it. This really feels like a double bind for the company. They're being given a requirement they can't meet.
What are we to make of what the federal government has done in ordering that this be removed from all government devices? Are government phones more susceptible? Going back to how you answered the first question, we know that they're spying on us. What is the significant difference between federal devices and our own?
There isn't, but again, the conceit is that if China is using this platform to spy on us, spying on government employees on their official devices is somehow worse. But that's easier to enforce. You just demand your employees do it, and they comply because they are your employees. It's very different than demanding the general public, who are just regular citizens, comply. That's unenforceable. We know that about internet gambling. We can't ban that anywhere. So we've tried to play this game, but it's hard. We can get to the commerce, right? We ban funding what we think of as terrorist organizations. So financial companies can't do business with terrorist organizations. You can imagine a similar thing with TikTok, that you can't pay them money. Advertisers can't advertise. We're not doing that ban, but there are other things we can do that might pass better legal tests.
Dan, as we head down these roads, especially as AI is quickly developing, as our reliance on technology is developing more, is this precedent setting, or is there any look back? Is there any precedent for this decision going forward?
Yeah, I think the closest analogy we have is a decision from a few years ago called Packingham v. North Carolina. This was a case where the state of North Carolina made it a condition on convicted sex offenders that after they were released, they couldn't use social media applications. And the idea was that they're more likely to engage in recidivism, and social media was a place where they could easily contact minors. And the Supreme Court unanimously struck that down, even recognizing that protecting children from sexual abuse is an important governmental interest. The court found that the restriction on sex offenders was far too broad, right? It prevented them not only from contacting minors on social media, but also job applications, news sites, talking with adult friends. The state tried to analogize it to sort of the zoning rules that they put in place, like keeping sex offenders X number of feet away from schools or parks. But the court said this is different because it's not just implicating geographic movement, it's implicating speech. And that's the number one difference between sort of these offline analogies and why they don't map very well onto online restrictions.
Bruce, quickly, I just want to ask before we go, the Biden administration, just like the Trump administration before it, is seeing if there's a way to force China to sell this company so that it becomes a U.S. company that offers TikTok. Is that at all possible?
I mean, in terms of business, I have no idea. Possibly, probably. Now, notice that doesn't stop TikTok from spying on you. It just means different owners are spying on you, different tech billionaires. I'm not convinced this is a whole lot better, but indeed, that is the solution we're looking at.
All right, well, we appreciate you both looking at this. Everybody uses it, so this is going to be front and center for a while ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.